So, NMIXX's first album, Blue Valentine, is going to drop in the next month, and I'm so excited for it, but, as you know, I like to read into things. So when I read the title of the album, something clicked, especially when I read the word blue. It made me very hyper aware of NMIXX's usage of the color blue in their concept films and their music videos at times. At first, I thought there was a specific shade of blue that appears in their music videos and concept films. But then when I started to, go back and rewatch their content, I noticed that there wasn't a specific shade, but there was a variety of shades. And like an accent color on one of their outfits, or even post-production when the scene's being edited, there's the scene is filtered out with a blue hue. And it made me realize that NMIXX has a really deep connection to the color blue, and it's done in such a way where it doesn't really feel like you notice it right away, because their concept films have this ominous nature and this level of darkness and emptiness about them that just feels so natural with what they're discussing that you're not really hyper aware of that choice, unless again you're into color theory and cinematography. Then obviously naturally you might pick up on that, but generally it just fits so well that you might not notice it right away. And that's why I didn't really notice how much it appeared in their content. And I think with the announcement of Blue Valentine, it kind of made me realize that in a way, it was kind of like an unofficial acknowledgement by the group, by official counts, by JYP, by extension, I guess, kind of like recognizing that blue is kind of like their unofficial color. And, as we all know, that K-pop groups have their own colors to signify and strengthen their branding. For example, Blackpink has pink and black. BTS and Everglow have purple. So, it helps strengthen their brand. And I think because this color blue has kind of found its way into their concept films and their music videos, I think it's a subtle way of strengthening their branding without having to shove it down their audience's throats. So I think that creates this effect of showing how much blue means to them through how much it's integrated and seeped, and how much it seeps through their storytelling. I also want to remind you that I've also talked about blue in my Kai video, and if you want to go watch that, please do. But back on topic, I do want to talk about blue in the context of another K-pop group, even though my viewers, and I think we are very if you watch the Kai video, you kind of will be aware of what blue means, right? But I still want to talk about it in the context of another K-pop group, and because they have a different vision and they have a different way of viewing genres in music and basically art in general. So I do want to talk about it out of respect for perspectives, right? So I also want to talk about my own personal feelings and how I perceive things, because again, even the objective research that I'm about to talk about is very non-serious, so I guess I don't know. But I want to provide a subjective take and my perception of how NMIXX carries their relationship with the color blue. And when I look back on looking at my viewing experience of the concept film specifically, I think I become so aware of the color blue within the filmmaking and the storytelling, because it creates this coldness and this ominous feeling that something is missing. A lot of their concept films feel like a mystery. It creates this angsty atmosphere because it provides a sense of anxiety, because you can't really decode what's really happening. It also kind of feels a whole lot more lonelier to come out of an NMIXX concept video, because you're confused and sometimes you don't know where to go in order to find those answers, right? So, again, I wrote down in my script that a lot of times when you come out of a NMIXX concept film, it provides this vibe that, like, you know how some characters are so traumatized that it's almost like they're so numb from it that you notice that this character has a habit of, like, almost dissociating and, like, staring off to the abyss. That's what a lot of these concept films feel like. That's what it feels like, because they are so, like, they feel, of course there's not, like, magic. I mean, I know they have, like, their ships and, their spaceships and that concept, but they feel otherworldly without having to do magic or providing a fantastical element to it, because it just feels so ominous that it doesn't feel like we are a part of that timeline. So, oftentimes you just feel so confused, and again, you're watching a mystery unfold and you don't really have the exact answers to go about it, and you often feel like there's like depth in this scene, and that's exactly what's being portrayed, but you can't exactly pick it out because you don't have the words yet to describe what's happening. But it's also so obvious that, like, Bay is kind of playing baseball and then, like, eating candy afterwards. Like, that's such an obvious thing to, like, observe, but it's so obvious that they're doing something that you sometimes don't know what to say in order to mention that they are, like, doing something that has a lot of meaning, that what is being shown to us actually has a lot more meaning than what they seem to let on, but you just can't figure it out. That there's a hidden code within the scene. And when I look back at rewatching the concept film videos, I look at them retrospectively with this awareness to the color blue and its presence in the filmmaking and the storytelling, as it creates this, like, atmosphere of coldness and this ominous feeling that something is missing, and it feels like a mystery. You have to pick it apart. That's what you want to do. And it gives you this sense of anxiety because you can't really decode what's really happening. Because, again, I've mentioned what the members are doing on screen is pretty obvious, but that there is another meaning to what is occurring on screen. It also makes you want to reflect on what you've just saw, and, it's just very confusing the first time you watch it, because there's so much. It's quite literally performance art, and you're trying to find why this is important to their lore. Why is it important to the overarching plot of the album? Right? So it creates this atmosphere. Again, the blue hue or the blue filter to the videos give this feeling to the viewer that things are hopeless and you've lost everything, and it just feels like, in this weird way, it feels like you're traveling through fog, but fog is often like cloudy white or gray. I don't know. To me, it's just, there's something so foggy about the blue filter that is applied to the film or videos or music videos. But at the end of the day, no matter how hopeless the atmosphere feels, you are still very curious to want to know about more. So now that I've expressed how I feel subjectively, I do want to get into the more objective-ish parts of the analysis, and I want to talk about the color blue. But if you remember from my Kai video, you will notice that I talked about the various meanings that the color blue has, right? It can mean relaxation, it can mean serenity, it can also mean depression, it can also mean sadness. On the other hand, it can represent stability and reliability. And you get the sense that blue has many different meanings and different interpretations for different people. Because if you remember what I've said in the Kai video, I said that no matter what, or I didn't say it, or maybe I've added on to this thought, but either way, I'm penning it now, that even if the color yellow represents happiness, to you that color could mean something else. It could literally mean romance. It could mean, it could be a sign, it could be a color of mourning for you. Different colors have different interpretations. But I guess, like, what does blue have to do with NMIXX, right? The bigger question is, what is their relationship to the color blue? And why, as a group, are they so connected to the color blue? Because again, remember, even though there's not like a stone definition of what a color means, even though it depends on the context of how you use that color, we also have to acknowledge that colors have meaning. So in that case, why is this group so connected to the color blue? I've said this question 3 times, but I think the answer to this question is the color blue's ability to be versatile. Different colors have different meanings, right? And even though they could mean, maybe they have several, like, adjectives, or that's not the right word. They could have several different things that they could symbolize. However, you'll start to notice this pattern that they all kind of fit, and they all have this connection to each other. And I think I want to back this up with an example. So the color orange. The color orange has it. What it says here is that the psychology of the orange in North America tells us that the color has traditionally been a symbol of optimism, happiness, enthusiasm, and youthful connections. So, even though these words have, they have all different meanings, you can see the connection, and the connection is positivity. And another example would be the color pink. So, I'm reading off of the list, and that list pertains to femininity, healing, innocence, peace, playfulness, romance, sweetness, tranquility, and warmth. I guess there's a lot more diversity than there is in orange, but you can see, even if it's a slight connection, you can start to see the connection being, again, once again, positivity, softness, vulnerability. That's the connection that is present there. In blue, once again, you'll notice that it can represent, blue can represent depression, but at the same time, it can represent peace, but also at the same time, it can contradict, and, well, not contradict, that's the wrong word. It also can represent reliability. So again, there's this versatility to blue that I have not noticed in other colors. And I think that's why NMIXX chose the color blue to be a subtle symbol for their artistry. Even though the blue is not immediately noticeable, you do notice that NMIXX thrives in being polarizing. People have a lot of opinions about NMIXX, and especially their debut. It was very polarizing for so many people. And NMIXX thrives in providing their own definition or their own interpretation of how a genre of music is, presented. And they often create music that may contradict what we understand about music. And blue holds that same level of versatility that NMIXX does with their discography. Each track feels carefully curated to stand alone from each other. Even if you don't enjoy their music, it is safe to say that they've experimented and they have tried their hand in many genres. I mean, they've even expanded further from mix pop and have searched and have found themselves searching into exploring different genres. I think the color blue allows for their artistic expression to cultivate itself in different faces and different avatars. Sometimes the artistic expression could come from the blue filter or the blue accent colors or the blue theming of a concept video or how a certain song is produced. I mean, they literally have a song called The Ocean, and as we know, the ocean is blue. I mean, okay, maybe it's not blue. When you look at the ocean, when you look at, a body of water and it looks blue, but when you, take it out into a glass, it's not blue. I'm referring to the body of water. I don't know why I needed to put that disclaimer, but you know what I mean. But blue also represents the ocean, and as you know, water tends to take up any shape that it finds itself in any container that water has access to, and NMIXX does the same thing as they mold themselves into whatever concept, whatever topic, whatever genre they want to discuss musically, and I think that's what makes NMIXX so special. I think that's why blue represents them, because it represents their adaptability and their commitment to make you feel curious and yet empty when you don't find the answers. So I guess my answer to this question is a little bit more complicated than what you think it could be. So I'll break this answer down into two parts. In a cinematography sense, I keep messing up this word, I apologize. I think blue represents this questioning and this emptiness and a bit of anxiety. And that anxiety could mean a fear and being worried of what the answer is, or just really, really wanting to know. But on the other hand, musically, they use the color blue as a way to represent their adaptability, their ability to contradict themselves through challenging what has already been created by them and being able to find a new meaning in several forms through colors and finding several nuanced shades and definitions to cement their own meaning of what the color blue represents. I don't really want to talk about Blue Valentine on this video because I don't feel like I know enough to theorize or speculate. But again, Blue Valentine, the title of the album, was enough to invoke the idea that blue has a lot more meaning than I had first thought of, But I do, of course, this is a pretty obvious assumption. It might be an album of talking about romance, and I think Blue makes me question what they will specifically talk about in the realm of romance, because again, we know blue has so many different meanings. It could talk about heartbreak. It could also talk about the sadness that romance has to offer. Not has to offer, but the sadness that being in love could provide. So, once again, I'm going to be so thrilled when this album drops. I'm so excited. We all have been waiting for this for so long, and this video is kind of a way to almost hype myself up that the album is coming, and I'm like super excited. So, thank you for watching, because I will be over here preparing myself for the greatest day of my life. Okay, that was an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. But anyway, thank you for watching, and bye now.